whispers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment, letting us know where you're listening from. Now, let's get into it. Story 1. The cult leader who had the FBI's blessing. I'm not sure how she got away with it for as long as she did. I mean, we all thought it was a church. A little weird, sure, but a church. Until I started digging, and what I found, it still messes with me. Because this wasn't faith. It was a cult, built on starvation, guilt, and control, wrapped in scripture. So it started as this weight loss program. That was the hook. Spiritual fasting, discipline, removing sin through shrinking your body, that kind of thing. People bought in, thousands. She told them that being overweight was a spiritual failure, and they believed her. She wasn't just convincing, she was dangerous. She called the pounds rebellion, said children were disobedient because they were spoiled by food, and that if you wanted your family saved, you had to shrink the flesh. People were clapping for this in pews, while their kids withered in front of them. One woman lost custody of her son after he came to school with bruises. He'd been locked in his room for days without food, and she told the court, under oath, that it was part of her spiritual training. She wasn't lying. That's what they taught. That's what she taught. And here's where it gets dark. Because that kid, he died at home, beaten, starved. They said it was an accident, but people inside the group, quiet people, started to talk, and what they described was systematic. Punishments, sleep deprivation, humiliation, public confessions, even marital cleansing sessions, where women were told they had to obey their husbands no matter what. She had absolute control over diet, over marriage, over parenting, over money, and the worst part, she had protection. I'm not saying federal agencies looked the other way, but there were reports, there were deaths, and still nothing. Local law enforcement said they couldn't touch her. She was too big, too loud, too rich, and she kept growing. Private jets, mega mansions, TV specials, books, all with smiling, bone-thin believers standing behind her, swaying, singing, shrinking. But then came the crash. Her jet, private of course, went down outside a lake town. No survivors. And that's when it all started unraveling. Members suddenly weren't afraid to talk. A documentary crew got involved, and people who had been silent for decades started whispering names. They talked about food diaries handed out in youth groups, kids crying during services, parents who fasted their way into favor, and the weirdest part, all the wealth, everything, was still tied up, still protected. The group still exists. Smaller, quieter, but it's still there. So I don't know if she was ever working with the government. But I do know this. She had money. She had followers. And she had power. And in this country, that's all you need to be untouchable until the sky takes you. Story 2. I'm not saying I know who the killer is, but I know who nobody's willing to talk about. And honestly, that's just as good, right? I live in a small town. Population barely 6,000. You blink, you miss it. We've got 2 bars, 1 gas station, and more churches than cops. But in the last 10 years, we've had 5 unsolved murders. And that's just what's been reported. The victims, all women, ages 20 to 35, all found in remote spots, off hiking trails, down by the river, near the edge of farms. Here's the thing. None of them were reported missing right away, and when they were, the cases were handled slow, messy, like the cops were always just 2 steps behind. Or maybe deliberately walking in circles. People in town talk quietly, and when they do, there's one name that keeps coming up. The chief. Let me explain. He's been with the department for decades. Got promoted not long before the first body turned up. I grew up here. My mom used to babysit his kids. He's the type that remembers birthdays, smiles in church, always calls you buddy. But then you start to dig a little. Victim 1, found near a dairy farm. Her case file, half of it's missing. No digital copy, just gone. Victim 2, her phone was recovered, but the evidence bag got compromised. Never even opened. Victim 3, she filed a harassment complaint 2 months before she was killed. Guess who it was against? I only found out because her sister posted a screenshot in an old memorial group. It was up for 10 minutes before it vanished, but I saved it. That's when I really started digging. Late nights, internet rabbit holes, public records, obituaries, local gossip, and here's what I found. Every one of the 5 victims had some kind of connection to him. One had a dad who worked under a city contract. Another's mom filed a complaint after a traffic stop. One had dated someone in his family. Another used to babysit for a relative. All small details. Alone, they mean nothing. Together, it's a pattern. But the thing that shook me the most, I sent an anonymous tip through the town's public website. Just a list of connections. Nothing wild. The next day, I came home. Mailbox wide open. Nothing stolen. Nothing moved. Just sitting there. On top of the mail was a single folded napkin. No note. No handwriting. Just a smear of something red. Looked like ketchup. I hope it was ketchup. I haven't told anyone. Not really. I'm using a burner account to post this. VPN, cleared cookies, everything. But every day I check the news. Every day I check the obituaries. Because I know what happens to people who start looking too closely in this town. And the worst part, the chief's running for mayor next year, unopposed. So, yeah, I'm not saying I know who the killer is, but I do know this. When the devil runs the church, even God keeps quiet. If something happens to me, I've scheduled everything I've found to publish automatically within 48 hours. If nothing happens, maybe that's worse. Story 3. Her husband's first family was never real. She always had questions about Marcus's past. He spoke often about his first wife, Denise, and their 2 kids, how they died in a car accident in Colorado. But there were no photos, no obituaries, no gravestones, nothing, just vague memories, told in rehearsed little pieces. It wasn't until their second year of marriage that Alicia saw something she couldn't explain. She found his old phone, and in it, videos, dozens of them, birthday parties, family dinners, Christmas mornings, a smiling woman, 2 laughing kids, the first wife, his real family, or so she thought. But none of the videos had dates. None of the people appeared in any searches. And when she tried reverse image searches, nothing came up. So she called me, asked me to help her figure out the truth. I studied the clips. One of the boys had braces in one video, but was missing baby teeth in another. Posted just a day apart. Same kid, different ages. Then I recognized one of the women. She wasn't Denise. She was an actress. Someone I'd seen in a low-budget ad years ago. I checked her resume. She did freelance commercial work, stock footage, and one of the clients listed Marcus. There were no records of his first marriage, no children, no accident, just a carefully built fantasy, staged, purchased, delivered to his phone. The last thing Alicia told me was that Marcus wanted to take her on a remote road trip to honor his family's memory. She was scared, said something in his eyes had changed. I told her not to go. I told her I was coming to her, but she went anyway. Her car was found on the side of a mountain road, empty. Marcus disappeared. The phone, gone. And the last video she sent me wasn't of the wife or the kids. It was just Marcus, standing in the woods, smiling at the camera and whispering, "This time she'll be better." Story 4. The guy who stole a plane just to crash it. I can't stop thinking about it. Not because it was the most violent crime, not because it left a body count, but because because it felt like a warning, disguised as a moment of peace. A man stole a plane, not a little Cessna, a full-sized commercial aircraft. And the part that gets me, he didn't know how to fly, at least not officially. He worked at the airport, ground crew, moved luggage, guided planes, invisible to the world until that day. He casually walked into a restricted area, climbed into the cockpit, and just took off. No one stopped him. Tower was confused. Pilots were scrambling. Fighter jets were deployed, but he was calm. Way too calm. He flew for about an hour. Did barrel rolls, loops, tricks that even professional pilots said shouldn't have been possible for that aircraft. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't angry. He was poetic. I listened to the audio. He said things like, "I'm just a broken guy. I never knew I had it in me." And the one that hit the hardest, "I guess I wasn't really planning on landing." Let that sink in. He didn't steal the plane to escape. He wasn't trying to go anywhere. He stole it just to fly, just to feel weightless, just to be free for once. And when it was over, he nosedived into a remote island. No buildings, no people, just trees and silence. Gone. No note, no plan, no real explanation. They say he had no criminal record, no history of violence, nothing to indicate he'd ever do something like this. But maybe that's the scariest part. Maybe he was the everyman, doing everything right until the quiet swallowed him whole. I keep thinking about what kind of pain makes a person do something like that. Not just to end it all, but to do it beautifully, like performance art, like a ghost writing his own goodbye through the sky. They cleaned up the site. The media moved